a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. It's time for Friday Reads. I've had a pretty darn good reading week. I want to tell you all about it. It's, not all great, but what has been great has been fantastic. I finished 4 books this week, and the first one was this work of Maroon history. Almost Home, Maroons Between Slavery and Freedom in Jamaica, Nova Scotia, and Sierra Leone by Ruma Chopra. This ended up being a real disappointment. Now, the first thing to say is, this is an academic history written for academics, so I was always going to be displeased because of it's not written for me. She's not a very good writer, but it was a very interesting story when she could just get out of the way of telling the story, because she bungled a lot of it. It's the story of Maroons, escaped slaves in Jamaica from the early 18th century, and there was a war between the colonial bastards of Jamaica, the white British assholes, if that isn't repeating myself, and the ex-slaves, and there was a peace treaty, and they were given mountainous terrain with which to live, and as long as they agreed to capture and return any subsequent escaped slaves, the white bastards of Jamaica would leave them alone. Well, that didn't last more than about 40 years, and it was quite a compromise for these Maroons to make. And that was a fascinating historical theme that I didn't know anything about. But, the white bastards of Jamaica, they humiliated the Maroons. One was caught stealing, and they had a slave whip him. So again, there's all kinds of stuff, racial and hierarchical. And that led to this outbreak of the Second Maroon War. And then they were exiled to first to Nova Scotia and then to Sierra Leone. Really interesting history. A really mediocre version of it, I think. Because I didn't know any of the basic facts, and I think Chopra assumed you should, and that's fine, because she was an academic writing for other academics, I had to keep going to Wikipedia to get the basics. I'm not going to make a long story. I could go on for 20 minutes about all the things I didn't like, but the biggest thing, the thing that made this a 2-star read for me, was she was so excited by the bureaucratic hand-wringing and memos that she found in the archives that she didn't focus barely at all on the narratives created by the Maroons themselves. And I didn't think of that for the first half or so of the book, because I thought, well, I guess there was no written records of what they thought of their treatment and their exiles and moving around the globe. But that's bullshit. That's not true. She alludes to letters that the correspondence between the Maroon people and the British politicians and whatnot, but I think there was like 2 half sentences from those documents that she quoted, and I was so angry about that I hate this book. So that happened. Also quite disappointing was the novel The Street by Ann Petrie, whose opening chapter I raved about on my Friday Reads 2 weeks ago, and it was all downhill from there. This was a 3-star read for me, quite disappointing. Story of a single African-American mother in the 1940s on a tough street. I don't remember which city it was, Philadelphia or something. And I felt a lot of compassion for the main character, but what ruined the book, almost, was the problems with pacing in this novel. It dragged. It was 400 pages, and it was about a 150-page story. And what worked really well in the opening chapter, where she is going to look at an apartment for rent in a really rundown apartment building with a really creepy superintendent, where every moment of her walking up the staircase and then inspecting the empty suite, embedded within every few moments of that was a flashing back to why she wanted the apartment and things about her childhood and her concerns for her son, her 8-year-old son. It beautifully set the scene for the novel and was a tour de force of a chapter. One of the best opening chapters of a novel that I've read in a long time. But then she kept doing it. Every scene that was full of action, or that, you know, had some drama in it, every 30 seconds of action that she would narrate would be followed by 3 freaking pages of the most laborious sociological navel-gazing prose, and it was just awful. It really ruined the book. But there was things about it that I liked. She had really good descriptions. The characters were unlikable and interesting, so no problem there. The story was a bit melodramatic, but fine. But the pacing was just like molasses in January. Quite disappointed with that. Much more positive, the last 2 that I finished this week. Next is the South African novel Mother to Mother by Sindiwe Magona. And I almost loved it. I loved a lot about it, but I did give it 4 stars instead of 5 because of a few problems. But this is set in Cape Town and the shanty town where black South Africans in, I forget, maybe the 1950s, they were forcibly removed from a neighborhood of Cape Town to make way for more white people and forced to just erect the shanty towns. And I've never read a description of what the trauma of what that was like that was as powerful as in this book. So that was incredible. The story centers on the murder, and this is a true life story, of a white young American woman who came to South Africa during the 1993 election, 1995. Mandela was freed in 93 and the elections were 95, or anyway, in the early 1990s, the first free and fair elections, and this young American woman came to help organize and stuff, volunteer work, and she was brutally murdered by a mob of black people in this shanty town outside of Cape Town. And so the novel is a fictional imagining of the mother of one of the murderers, a young black South African man, and addressed to the mother of the woman. I need to say her name. Her name needs to be in this review, in my comments. Amy Beale. She was murdered in 1993. That conceit didn't quite work for me, but the black South African mother's story of her life was really powerful. I think it's the best novel by a black South African that I've ever read. I want to read more by Sindiwe Magona, and you just have to Google her name on YouTube and watch 3 minutes of any of the many, many videos of her on YouTube to fall in love with her as a person as well. There wasn't enough of her son in the story. As when he was a younger child, he witnessed a horrendous racist murder by the police that traumatized him. But beyond that, and after that in his life, I didn't really feel like he was fully embodied in the novel, and so that's what I took a star off for. But no, it was really good. This novel I read for Karen of Run Right Reads book club, and I think she'll be putting a video up to discuss it any day now. So glad that I discovered a new black South African writer, new to me. And last night I finished Don't Call Us Dead, the newest collection of poetry by Dennis Smith. Eric Carl Anderson pointed out to me I wasn't aware that Dennis Smith prefers the pronouns they and them, so as awkward as that is for an old geezer like me, it's very important, so bear with me as I trip over using those in my comments from here on in. I read their earlier book of poetry, Black Movie. Is that what it's called? Yes, Black Movie. That was from 2015, and I read it last year, and I really liked it, and I really like this too. The first third was some of the most incredible, angry, fiery, moving, powerful, important poetry I've ever read, and I didn't think the last half or 2/3 was as strong as the first third. But their poetry about the racist police shootings of young African-American men was just ripped my heart out, and it's almost as powerful on the page as it is to watch them do it live. You can find videos on YouTube. I will put a link in the show notes to one that just blew me out of the water. Dear White America, the video of that. I think there's actually a few different versions of them performing this poem on YouTube, but this is the one that I saw, and it was just, that was incredible. So those are the books that I finished. And are you sitting down? I didn't bail on anything this week, and I'm really sorry to let you down. I have started 4 books this week. I know last week, you may remember, if those of you that are keeping track, that I only said I was going to be starting 2, but that was a lie. I have started, and I'm almost 150 pages into this mammoth tome, Kia Corthron's debut novel, The Castle Crossed the Magnet Carter. This is a buddy read with Britta Bowler, and I am really enjoying it. I can't decide yet if I'm loving it, but I'm certainly really enjoying it. Yeah, I'm 150 pages in. And I don't think I want to say much more than that. So it's about 2 sets of brothers, starting out in about 1941 in America. The 2 white brothers are in the South, is it Alabama? Yep. And the 2 African American brothers are in a suburb of Baltimore. And eventually their paths will cross quite horrifically, apparently, but for now it's just at the childhood stage, and I'm enjoying the writing and the characterization, and very, very curious to see where this will go. Even more momentously, I have started, and am now 35% of the, I'm not sure how many, 40% of the way through Edward P. Jones's novel, The Known World. And Brian of Bookish, you were waiting with bated breath for my reaction, and I think I may have already foreshadowed that in a reply to one of your comments, but for all of you, I think I need to start making room on my top 10, maybe even my top 5 novels of all time to make a place for this novel. There's still 60% to go, and I'm famous for getting really, really excited about a novel and then souring on it, so don't want to say too much more than that, but it's just obliterating me. So it's the story, it's too trite to say that it's a story about slave-owning African Americans. It's about slavery and how it's touching and tainting and distorting the lives of black and white Americans at that time before the Civil War. And just a tour de force so far. It's touching, funny, devastatingly powerful. And this buddy read with a whole bunch, I won't name them all, is really, really incredible. So I will have more to say once I've finished, but this is one of them novels. Holy shit, is what I put in one Goodreads comment. I have also read the first bit of this Faber story, single volume story by Bettina Gappa, an elegy for Easterly, and I'm doing this as a video discussion project with Doris of Aldi Books. I will finish it easily this weekend. It's starting out really good. It's a Zimbabwean story. I've never read anything by Bettina Gappa. Want to read more on the basis of this, and Doris's and my video will be up in the next few days. And kind of on a whim, after I heard somebody rave about it on Litzy, I started on audio a memoiristic biography of Lorraine Hansberry called Looking for Lorraine, The Radiant and Radical Life of Lorraine Hansberry by Imani Perry. And I'm about 20% of the way in, and it's really good. I didn't know very much about Lorraine Hansberry. I knew she died pretty young. I didn't realize how young, 34 years old, I believe. I certainly didn't know she was a lesbian, so her life so far is just fascinating. And any of you that loved, is there any of you that didn't love Michelle Obama's memoir? I mean, Lorraine Hansberry grew up in Chicago, and so it's a really great audiobook to follow on the heels of the Michelle Obama autobiography, I think, and I'm really quite enjoying it. So that's what I've got in progress, and I don't think I'm going to be starting any new books, famous last words, but I'm not planning to start anything new. I think what I've got on my plate, because I've got other books that I'm reading also that I didn't need to mention because they've been in progress for a few weeks. I think I'll be doing a TBR for the Irish Readathon, which I'm planning to do as much Irish reading as I can in March for that, alongside the Mammoth-a-thon tome topple thing. I'm not actually going to have anything that I will start and finish for the Mammoth Readathon. Already started this, and we'll finish this in March, and then Britta and I will start the Tale of Genji in March and finish it in April. So, but I will be reading Mammoth tomes, but won't meet any of the criteria to start and finish them within the month. But it's still participation, right? And hope to fit in as much Irish lit in and around the edges. Maybe I should have done Ulysses. Is that 800 pages? No, I will never read Ulysses. All in all, it was a pretty darn good reading week. How was yours? Thanks for watching.